guys, what's going on? It's Ultimus. We are looking again at some class previews. We got two left. We have Monk and Rogue. I actually was surprised to see that we got this through most of these this quickly, I suppose. I was kind of like, wait, am I forgetting one? And no, it seems like we're coming towards the end of these bad boys. So I'm going to go for the Monk here, and then we'll follow up with the Rogue, and that will be that. But monks I have a little bit of experience with, mostly Windwalker. I've dabbled around in Mistweaver a little bit, didn't quite enjoy it, it wasn't my thing, and I know what they're changing here with monks is of a little bit of controversy, so we're going to address some of that briefly and kind of see, and of course, as always, if you guys have any opinion on it, if you play a monk and have some 2 cents to share, I'd love to hear from you, see what you have to say in the comment section, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Monks were introduced in Mist of Pandaria, and their story is woven directly into the expansion's rich and vibrant lore. Monks bring a unique martial arts style to any fight, and harness an exotic form of magical energy that's unfamiliar to those who practice other arcane arts. They seek spiritual balance in life and in combat, and are dangerous, and as dangerous as monks can be on the battlefield, they're rarely looking to pick a fight without just cause. They view the world through different lens, finding power through serenity and inner peace, then expressing it through artful combat techniques and powers that mend life. Perhaps most surprisingly, monks are also adept at producing powerful brews that consume to aid them in battle. Basically, they're wandering alcoholics. In Legion, we're focusing on making sure monk abilities and gameplay better match the class's vivid backstory. We're also looking at abilities that already lend themselves well to the monk's character, but whose mechanics are in need of polish. For the Brewmaster. The Brewmaster is a quirky character, though dangerous when underestimated. Brewmasters may seem to struggle with balance as they chug their concoctions in the middle of a fight, but this unpredictable behavior is far from foolhardiness. Most opponents barely have time to process the erratic nature of the Brewmaster's fighting tactics before they find themselves laid low. Possibly the result of a keg smash to the head probably would be enough to kill anybody, really, if you think about it. When an opponent actually manages to land an attack, it's often unclear how much the Brewmaster feels it, if at all. So, Brewmasters, interestingly enough, are obviously it's a tank spec, so it's dealing mostly primarily with PvE, but for whatever reason, in the past season of WoD PvP in Warlord Season 2, we actually saw a decent amount of Brewmaster monks in arenas, and specifically in 2s, not so much in 3s. But I actually ran into a handful of Brewmaster monks in 2s. And if you weren't paying attention, they actually would do decent damage. Now, they were very easy to counter and shut down, but as a principle, like if you let your guard down and you just were like, it's a monk, whatever, and you didn't really do anything about them, then you would take a decent amount of damage. It was interesting. But for gameplay, the gameplay of Brewmasters hasn't quite fit their archetypes to this point. Rather than being the tricky martial artist staggering around with an evasiveness that frustrates their opponent while being a little squishy when taking an unmitigated blow, Brewmasters have been more focused around large absorption shields and clutch self-healing. Our new design approach is to get more gameplay depth out of their strong thematic abilities instead of chi as a resource, which had little depth for Brewmasters. We're switching to charges of brew abilities that other abilities still interact with. So again, the idea that you're looking at more of a dodge mechanic tank. Again, originally as we compared the Guardian Druid, and I brought up the point of comparing them to Brewmaster monks in that it doesn't really make sense for a bear tank to focus on dodge, especially now that we have the Brewmaster monk, which does focus more on dodging and evading attacks and things like that, whereas the warriors more shield blocks, glancing off blows, parries. Death Knights are more absorbs and just draining life from their enemies. And so with this now, of course, Guardian Druids we talked about, just full on just taking the hit. Like, you can hit them as much as you want, and it doesn't even seem like it's going to matter. I do like that they're addressing what they want to see each tank specialize in. And for a lot of people, it doesn't matter. They just want to play what's best, and so they're looking for what the best in slot class is. And I guess that's cool. I mean, if that's your jam, that's cool. But for me, it's like I want to play a class that I can really get into the immersion factor of it. It's why I've played a warrior for so long. It's why certain alts appeal to me rather than others, even though, for example, yes, Affliction Warlocks are much better than Shadow Priests. the idea and the aesthetic and the theme behind an Afflictional Warlock doesn't really appeal to me as much as a Shadow Priest. It's why I play a Holy Paladin above a Resto Shaman or a Resto Druid. I like the theme and the whole archetype and the principle behind why you're doing what you're doing. And I know not everybody's like that, but I do like that they're trying to flush this out, so at least the abilities and the playstyle matches the lore that they're backing up behind each class and spec. I just hit my microphone, so if that sounded weird, I'm sorry. But at least, because I know that is a lot important to a lot of people. And so I like that they're fleshing this out. If they can accomplish it, even better. But I do like the fact that they're at least addressing that. So I do give Blizzard kudos for that. Here's a basic look at the core defensive and offensive combat abilities for Brewmaster Monks. Defensive abilities, Ironskin Brew. Instant 20-second recharge, 3 charges, increases your stagger amount by an additional 60% for 6 seconds. Shares charges with Purifying Brew. Purifying Brew is an instant with a 20-second recharge and 3 charges as well. Instantly purifies all of your staggered damage. Shares charges with Ironskin Brew. So I'm not entirely sure how the mechanics work for Brewmaster Monks. I know they have this, stagger's a big deal for them. I know it's one of their key mechanics. I believe that's what allows them to resist damage and mitigate damage and things like that. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe it works to where, and then eventually you're going to take that damage eventually, something along those lines. I don't exactly know how this works. So if you play a Brewmaster Monk, you probably know more about this than I do. But I still want to go through it as well. I don't want to skip over anything because it just seems inefficient and rude, quite frankly. Gift of the Ox. Passive, when you take damage, you have a chance to summon a healing sphere visible only to you. Moving through this healing sphere will heal you for 25% of your maximum health. It's kind of intense. This chance is increased the lower health you are. So the lower health you go, the more chances you have to heal, to drop these spheres down, which heal you for 25% of your maximum health. So depending on how many you're proccing, that could be a nice big self-heal there, which is kind of cool. Mastery is Elusive Brawler. Each time you are hit by a melee attack, you gain 20% with Mastery from typical gear. Dodge until your next successful dodge. This can stack. Wait, that doesn't make any sense though. How would that stack if the effect goes away after you dodge? That doesn't really make any sense. Maybe someone can explain how that worked to me, because I'm not quite getting that. The more, even though I'm like looking at this and staring at this, I'm like, okay, if you gain, each time you're hit by a melee attack, you gain 20% dodge until your next successful dodge. Oh, well, I guess never mind. Never mind. I see how this would work, because you can gain 20% dodge, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to dodge an attack. Duh. Sorry, I don't know why that was so complicated for me to grasp around. Anyways, okay, so there it is. There's your mastery. Also increases your attack power by 20%, much like all of the other tank masteries. Your offensive is Keg Smash. Let me clarify that. Keg, not cake. Although cake does sound delicious. We might have to go smash a cake later if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, cake. Cake, anybody? Red Velvet's my preferred cake or poison of choice. 40 energy, 15-yard range, instant 8-second cooldown. Smash a keg of brew on the target, dealing strong damage to all enemies within 8 yards and reducing their movement speed by 50% for 15 seconds. Reduces the remaining cooldown of your brews by 4 seconds. That's kind of cool. Tiger Palm, 25 energy, melee range, instant attack with the palm of your hand, dealing minor damage, reduces the remaining cooldown on your brews by 1 second. Blackout Strikes is a melee range instant, 3-second cooldown. Thwack. Wow, that's actually the word there that they used in the description of the flavor text, I guess flavor text explanation of that spell, thwack. In case you guys didn't know, thwack is actually a word now. It's just gonna be my new, like, anytime I screw up, thwack. I want to see monks, like, macro that into their ability whenever they use Blackout Strike. Just thwack. Your character yells it or says it. That'd be great. Thwack the enemy with your weapon, dealing moderate physical damage, shares cooldown with Breath of Fire. Breath of Fire is an instant with a 3-second cooldown. Targets in front of the caster take minor fire damage. If affected by Keg Smash, they will also burn for minor fire damage over 8 seconds. Shares cooldown with Blackout Strikes. Makes sense. If they got beer and booze all over them and you try to hit them with fire, they're going to go up in flames. Alcohol is a great fire starter, in case you didn't know. Science. Additionally, to give you a good idea of how some talents may build upon this, here's an example of one of their Brewmaster-specific talents. Elusive Dance as a passive. Purifying Brew also grants up to 15% dodge for 6 seconds. based on the level of stagger damage purified. So again, more buffs and more enhancing to your ability to dodge attacks. Mistweavers. Mistweavers are unique among those who heal. The energies they channel are mysterious, oftentimes misunderstood by commoners. Simple peasants don't understand our mistweaving ways. Who rarely travel beyond the borders of their homelands, as some form of folk medicine. But those who weave the mist wield the power of life's essence, using a mixture of preventative and restorative spells to mend their allies' wounds. The inner tranquility that guides Mistweavers allows them to sustain their healing for long periods of time and gives them the strength to care for multiple injured allies. Gameplay. Our goal with Mistweaver monks is to accentuate the existing characteristics that define them and resolve some core gameplay issues. In simple terms, this means we've redesigned their abilities so that you can directly use the spells you want rather than having to set up an excessive amount of other abilities first. That is one thing I did notice from playing with Mistweavers. One of my favorite things to do last season of PvP, if we could get the people for it, was play Turbo Cleave with my warrior. And I found that Turbo Cleave worked pretty well with good Mistweaver monks and Holy Paladins. But definitely, there was definitely a big gap between good Mistweavers and bad ones, because there was a lot of setup and a lot of prep you have to do to even get the ball rolling. And so if you weren't ready for that, if you weren't playing fast enough or keeping up with what you need to do, we definitely fell behind. And so they're addressing that issue, it seems, as well. Now, one thing they are getting rid of, which isn't new news, but it's worth addressing since we are talking about it, is that the fist weaving gameplay is going bye-bye. No longer going to be a melee healer to where you're able to punch stuff and it gets healed. They really just weren't liking the way it was going and how it was playing out. And it really wasn't viable or practical in WoD at all, actually. I was about to say the later ends of WoD, but really WoD at all, I don't think it's ever been relevant. So they're getting rid of that. So much like Warrior Glad Stance, they're just getting rid of it altogether. Which is probably where the most controversy comes from monks right now, is getting rid of fist weaving, which was probably the most appealing thing about monks to a lot of people for a long time. And so now that that's gone, Blizzard is really going to need to step up the gameplay mechanics and how everything works here to kind of make up for that uniqueness being lost. The most prominent example of this was Renewing Mist, which served primarily as a setup for Uplift, where we reworked Renewing Mist to stand on its own and replaced Uplift with a couple of new spells, Vivify and Essence Font. In addition, a new passive Soothing Mist mechanic gives Mistweavers a unique healing style with variable efficiency, over which you have more direct control. We're also focusing Mistweavers solely on healing rather than supporting a type of mixed attack healing gameplay that felt awkward and ultimately didn't live up to our goals for the spec. It was unintuitive and chiefly used as a mana management tool. Lastly, Mistweavers will now use mana, not chi, as a resource, since it reduced choices and restricted gameplay in many situations. So it really looks like they're moving DPS casters as a whole towards managing a secondary resource, or almost entirely a different resource, whereas they're keeping mana pretty strict to healers, is the impression that I'm getting after doing all of these overview guides, which is kind of cool. As long as there's still the issue of mana cost and balancing and things like that, how that's all going to work out. Who knows, as opposed to the cost of all these other casted abilities, is it going to be enough, too much? We'll see how this plays out. Again, once beta goes live, and of course that's what beta is for, so all that can be worked out and reported back to Blizzard so they can get our feedback. Mastery for Mistweaver. Gust of Mists. Your targeted heals also cause a gust of healing mists, instantly healing the target for a minor amount, increasing with mastery from gear. Soothing Mist is a passive. Your elusive enveloping mist. Sorry, your effuse. Effuse, I'm going to go with. Enveloping Mist and Vivify also trigger Soothing Mist. After casting these spells, you continue to channel healing mists onto the target, healing them for a minor amount every 0.5 seconds until you take any other action. Now, they got some developer comments here which state, need efficient healing? Cast any heal and let Soothing Mist continue to provide free healing as long as you feel comfortable. Need high throughput healing, cast any heal and move on to the next target in need of healing without spending time on Soothing Mist. For Mistweavers, it's okay to have an open global cooldown. To have open global cooldowns between heals, Soothing Mist fills these gaps. So interesting. So they seem like they can potentially be one of the most passive healers, which I guess would fit with their playstyle, going for that whole Zen kind of thing. We'll see how, because it might end up just being boring though, which is unfortunate. Anytime you're kind of trying to fill this type of a playstyle, which is the potential for Arms Warriors as well, I'll say, is that while we're going for the patient, precise swordsman look that has a potential to be very open and bland, kind of like it is now in Warlords of Draenor. Definitely your hits hit hard and they're precise and it's good chunk damage, but it's not as exciting because it's not very quick. It's not enthralling. You're playing a game at the end of the day. And so this is where this is going to get tricky, I find. So we'll have to see how this plays out as always. But Effuse is a 1.8% mana cast, 40-yard range, 1.5 second cast. A fast and efficient spell healing the target for a minor amount. Enveloping Mist is a 6% mana, 40-yard range, 2-second cast. Wrap the target in healing mist, healing them for a huge amount over 6 seconds and increasing healing received from your spells by 30%. So that's a nice little hot as well as a healing buff. Renewing Mist is a 3.5% mana instant with a 6-second cooldown. You surround the target with healing mist, restoring a huge amount of health over 20 seconds. If renewing mist causes any overhealing, it will travel to the most injured ally within 20 yards. When renewing mist heals, it has a 4% chance to increase the healing of your next Vivify by 50%. So kind of a big deal there, that renewing mist. Essence Font is an 8% mana, 40-yard range, 1.5 second cast, and causes a surge of invigorating mists around the target, healing them and their 2 nearest injured allies for a moderate amount. Additionally, to give you an idea how some talents may build upon this, here's an example of one of their mist weaving specific talents. Mistwalk is a 40-yard range instant with a 20-second recharge, and it has 2 charges. Instantly dash to an ally and heal them for a large amount. So a little more mobility for Mistweaver monks. Just what we wanted. If you're a Mistweaver monk, I'm sure that's great. For everyone else, we're tired of chasing you around the battlefield or the arena. That's all I'm going to say about that. So some interesting changes coming to Mistweaver, and it has the potential to be great. And of course, it has the potential to get dicey. So hopefully they're able to fill those gaps in and not make it dull. I'm hoping for the best. And finally, the one spec that I actually have some experience with, or I should say the most experience with, is Windwalker. Among monks, none have mastered the martial arts as Windwalkers have, and few across Azeroth can fight with their grace. One of those sentences that apparently was just impossible to read. Windwalkers possess unparalleled physical finesse and are capable of overwhelming their enemies with dizzying flurry of punches and kicks. Their skill comes primarily from a lifetime of intense training and discipline, but the power they exhibit is shrouded in more mysticism than meets the untrained eye. The combination of their peak physical conditioning, state of inner calm, and leveraging of mystical chi makes Windwalker monks a true force to be reckoned with, especially if they keep getting buffed, because right now their damage is insane. Gameplay. Similar to Brewmasters, here we focused on getting more depth out of less complexity. Windwalker's new mastery combo strikes encourages a mixing of varied abilities, which provides a constant gameplay hook that influences every ability they use and draws inspiration from classic fighting games. That was initially what they wanted for monks, and that's what I was looking for when I picked up a monk in Mist of Pandaria. I was excited to try them out, and between just trying to manage a couple other alts, I just didn't really feel any grip on them. Now, I will say I prefer a Windwalker monk over a rogue because it's more along the lines of my playstyle, comparing it to a warrior. But again, we'll see how this plays out. But I'm excited what they're proposing here as far as building those combos up and things like that. So here's... Let's not finish this paragraph here. Let's make sure we don't skip it. In addition, we've polished Storm, Earth, and Fire to remove some of the cumbersome mechanics. Windwalkers still use a combination of energy and chi along with heavy dose of short cooldowns. Here's a basic look at the core combat abilities for Windwalker monks. So what sounds like they're going for here is a very combo, heavy, fast-paced gameplay. Mastery is combo strikes. Your abilities deal 25% with mastery from typical gear, more damage when they are not a repeat of the previous ability. So, if you're casting a chain of abilities and you manage to get stuff off to where you're building on this, and you're going, say, Tiger Strike, Jab, Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, your abilities are going to deal more damage as they go, and so eventually, you know, that Rising Sun Kick is going to hit like a truck if you can manage to get it off without casting any of your previously cast spells twice. So that whole idea is kind of cool. That should, I think, hopefully, keep the Windwalker rotation fairly fresh and exciting in the sense of you kind of get free reign of how your rotation is going to go, more or less, as long as you're not stacking or spamming abilities. Now, I'm sure there will be a time and a place for it as far as generating chi goes, but probably once you get that chi generated, you're not going to want to spam abilities too much. You're going to want to go back and forth between the two. So this should, hopefully, I mean, you might see some good DPS from Windwalker Monks if this plays out properly. Tiger Palm is a 50 energy melee range instant attack with the palm of your hand, dealing minor damage and generating 2 chi. Tiger Palm has an 8% chance to make your next Blackout Kick cost no chi. Blackout Kick is a 1 chi melee range instant kick with a blast of chi energy, dealing moderate physical damage. Rising Sun Kick, 2 chi, melee range, instant 8-second cooldown. You kick upwards, dealing strong damage and reducing the effectiveness of healing on the target for 10 seconds. Fist of Fury is a 3 chi melee range channeled and has a 20-second cooldown. Pummel all targets in front of you, dealing massive damage over 4 seconds. Deals reduced damage to secondary targets. I don't know what that accent was, but there it is. Secondary targets, not targets. Can be channeled while moving. So we're back to being able to use Fist of Fury while moving. Says nothing about stunning though. So baseline looks like the stun mechanic is being removed from Fist of Fury, though I do seem to recall seeing some tweets going out to where you're going to be able to spec into causing Fist of Fury to stun. What I could see happening is allowing that to be a trade-off between you can cast it and it stuns, but it no longer is channeled or something along those lines. I could see that being a trade-off if that's more so what you're looking for, especially since major glyphs and or at least a lot of major glyphs are going away. Spinning Crane Kick is a 1 chi channel. You spin while kicking in the air, dealing moderate damage over 1.5 seconds to enemies within 8 yards. Storm, Earth, and Fire is you split into 3 elemental spirits suited to attacking 3 or more enemies. Each spirit deals 50% of normal damage and healing. The monk directly controls the storm spirit, while Earth and Fire spirits mimic the monk's attacks on different nearby enemies. Lasts until toggled off, or either Earth or Fire are destroyed. Developer comment here on this one is now a simple toggle, no targeting necessary. Spirits will automatically seek out nearby enemies to attack while you attack your target. So it sounds like you will have direct control over the storm spirit while Earth and Fire do go off and do their own thing, mimicking your attacks. So I'm curious if the monks are going to get like a guardian or a pet interface, more or less, for their storm spirit. So how that's going to work, who knows? It might be very similar to like DK's and their ghoul. Time will tell. Additionally, to give you an idea of how some talents may build upon this, here's an example of one of their Windwalker specific talents. Hit Combo is a passive. Each successive attack that triggers combo strikes in a row gains or grants 1% increased damage, stacking up to 10 times. So, again, encouraging you to, with this specific talent, not spam your abilities, but combo and chain stuff off each other so you can just keep stacking up higher damage, higher damage, higher damage, to eventually you might see some good stuff coming out. There's like some gnarly kill hits for PvP coming out of Windwalker Monks. If they're able to execute this, I could see Windwalkers being very good in Legion. I'm thinking specifically of Walking Dead Cleave. When you got your Death Knight and your Windwalker Monk and your healer, I could see this getting dicey and dangerous very, very quickly, depending on how powerful Death Knights are, of course. But Windwalker sounds like a lot of fun. The changes they're proposing, I like that Storm, Earth, and Fire is going to be a toggle, no longer needing to target each ability or each enemy you want it to go to, because I've got macros set up for different abilities. I've got, one for my target, one for my focus, and stuff like that. But so being able to just hit it once at the toggle, that would be great. So that alone, I think, is going to be a nice change there, less to manage or micromanage in that sense. But I am curious how the Storm Spirit's going to work out, since it does say we have direct control over it. Either way, I think monks are looking decent and they look exciting. The one that I think is going to be the point of much controversy still into the expansion is going to need to be paid attention to the most is Mistweavers. Mistweavers have a big potential to be great here if they can pull it off, but it also can be very, very bad. I don't feel like there's going to be any middle ground. I don't think that they're just going to be okay. I think they're either going to be great or not great. That's just, again, my opinion on the matter, just kind of going over this now, comparing them to what they are now. So yeah, we'll see. Especially with Fist Weaving gone, I can respect the fact that Blizzard is willing to just remove from the game if it isn't fun, it isn't intuitive, and it wasn't viable. There's really no point in having it in the game if you really can't propose an effective change for it, rather than letting it just sit there. So that alone, I think, is the best decision. And I know it's hard for game developers to make those decisions because there's people out there, a lot of fans of the game that miss it and like it, and they're going to be upset about it. But I feel like they have the best interest of their game in mind, and who's to say that it won't come back later? We'll find out. But for now, I can see this being the better option, just to get rid of it altogether and focus on what they're doing here for Mistweavers. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you play a monk or you're curious about it, please do leave a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to hit the video with a like if you enjoyed it. And sharing the video is always helpful as well. So with that, I'm going to draw this video to a close. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.